youth unemployment, it's the biggest problem. I mean, we talk about the COVID, we talk about gender-based violence, and probably youth employment is probably up there. That is keeping our president and this government awake, and we must do more. We can't say that we're doing enough. I think there's always room for improvement. And even though 2 billion rand sounds a lot, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot, because everybody must get, and opportunities are few and far. So let me pause there. I would welcome the opportunity to engage. So let me first listen, and then I'll take you through a few of the projects that we have. Thank you, Comrade Zuko.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll start with Loiso, who's one of the entrepreneurs that has joined us. They'll just give a brief introduction of themselves and their business, and then we'll go to, immediately after that, Zomzi, you will take over. Loiso, you can go.
Okay, greetings to everyone in the meeting. My name is Loiso, and I am from Enyanga. I'm a 23-year-old male. I run a company called the Moonside. Moonside, what does it do? It's a marketing and a management agency which assists local brands, businesses, and product developers to reach their target and get their clients. Thanks, Mr. Zulu.
Okay, thanks. Zomzi, take it away.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Mdai. Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible, yes.
Okay, okay. So my name is Zomzi, and I also stay in Nyanga. I am a self-taught fashion designer. So I started my brand in a year ago. So I run a clothing brand, which is already start now. So yeah, I design and make clothes and sell it to my clients. And also I fix those that they want me to fix. I do authorization, I do adjustments, I do everything that has something that has everything to do with clothes. So yes, yeah, that is all.
Okay, thank you so much, guys, for that interesting introduction of the businesses. So you guys are the two people here that will function as the voice of young entrepreneurs that are there. You'll ask questions, and I understand now we have connected live on our Facebook page. It's called From the House's Mouth, Uncensored Talk. So as the page says, Comrade Faiz, you must know that you'll be able to face uncomfortable questions because we don't censor the talk. So it's uncensored talk. So I just want to, my first question, because I usually lead debates in these sessions. So I'll just take my first questions. And then one of them is that we've seen it from speeches around government programs, wherein government has always inspired people to be part of the economy. And I've got this thinking that I've always had with regards to business generally, that most of the things are advertised for the consumption of the working class. And mostly, we are the target market for ads and all that. Now, what I want to, this is why, in fact, we termed this topic support for local economies, because if you look at the fact that our expenditure as people is not in support of our own, you know, we'd rather spend at your ShopRite, which are big corporates and all that. Now, part of the question that I want to ask is that, what is the government's view of local economy? Like when we speak of local economy in our township, what view do you guys as lawmakers have with regards to that? And if I can also may take another question on top of that. What informs that view? Is it maybe research? Because what I'm trying to gather is that, are you guys making the law based on real conditions that entrepreneurs like Zomzi and Lois are experiencing on the ground? Like, are you taking into account the environment within which they operate in, the access they have to information, and all sort of things? So what's the view of local government, of local economy, and what is it that government takes into consideration to form that perspective? If you can just answer me there.
Okay, no, it's a good question. So look, localization is a policy of this government. So what do we mean by localization? So look, we believe that money must stay in the area where people produce. So you're quite right that we say local is lekker. We say buy local, buy South African, and buy in our townships. And so there is a framework which basically says, let's, instead of importing everything from China or wherever, let's start to become producers. You know, South Africans want just to be consumers. We like the Nikes and the brands and the cell phones of other countries. Why can't we produce these things ourselves? And so there is a strong focus on localization. There's a manufacturing support scheme. There is a program where we look at local economic development. So local economic development is in our municipal space. So we're saying that informal traders, markets, fresh produce, all of those must create opportunities in the local space. There is a program called Township and Rural Entrepreneur Program, correct, which basically says that if you, a spaza person, a bakery, a nails beautician, a welder, any of these skills, and you have businesses in the township, there is actually a dedicated program, and we put billions aside for that. It's not big money. It's not, so for example, for a spaza shop, you'll get maybe 10,000 Rand to start, but you need to be South African. So the criteria is very strict. It's South African business. It must be registered with CPIC. You must have a formal bank account. Because you see, in the past, we need to ensure that when government put money into your business, that the business becomes sustainable. There will be due diligence and all of those things. So there is that Township Entrepreneur Program. And then also, we are saying in shops, we are saying there's about 1,000 products that must be locally manufactured. So for example, take the masks. During COVID, our government said, look, Department of Health, instead of procuring just masks from overseas, why don't we get the machines to do it ourselves? Or why don't we get the clothing groups, CMTs, on the townships, on the Cape Flats, in our townships? Then we contract them. It's the same thing like getting our local women to produce the school clothes, getting our local women to produce the tracksuits in town, and so that we can keep the money in. So there is a strong emphasis on localization. It's a, yeah. So let me pause there on the localization component.
Yes, thank you, Jen. Thank you very much for that. And you know, I also want, because it has covered part of the question that I had. But another thing that I also wanted to ask, which I got as you were speaking, was what programs are there to build capacity to make sure that these businesses comply? Because part of the businesses that are operated in the township, which includes spaza shops, beauty businesses, salons, and all that, they are operated on a survivalist type of a mentality or a tactic, wherein if I sell fat cook, when I come back at home after the whole day of being out there selling, from this man, I must make sure that I go and buy something that the family can eat. And I'm saying this because I'm a failed businessman myself. I received a sponsorship to buy a food truck, and I used to sell burgers. But now the thing is that if your livelihood depends on that, you're most likely to collapse the business yourself, which is why I'm actually asking as to whether, instead of saying there's funds available for you, is there a way to say, come attend these programs, let us build capacity so that even if you don't qualify this year, next year you do qualify. And on top of that, in terms of building compliance capacity, and what is the route to access such programs if they exist?
Okay, great question again, Kubritsuko. Look, so the organization called CEDA, the development agency, has a big footprint. I know they have a massive office in Kailicha. CEDA has an office there. And so their job is to build small business capacity. So look, we also can't just give money and the business isn't sustainable. You know, everybody can spend money, but it's a type of person that makes money and become entrepreneurial. So I think we are encouraging South Africans to move away from the handout welfare mentality of waiting for government to give me the grant, or waiting for government to give me the 350 or the SRD, to say, look, make a plan, have a business, make it sustainable, and here's government. That's not going to, because this is not a welfare thing. We want your business to be sustainable and profitable. And so what it requires you to be able to do the costing, business plan, to look at your profit margins, to look at how you move away from, and I get that. I mean, a lot of our communities are survivalists. My mother is standing in the town center there in Mitchell's, and she sells clothes, and it's just hand to mouth. She makes a bit of money, then she feeds the family, and in that way, it's literally survivalist. And so it's those type of people. It's young people that we say, okay, let's start from simple. Let's make business easy. So to register a company in South Africa now, it costs you 170 Rand. You go to CPIC, you register your business, you pay that 170 Rand, and then you get your certificate which says that you are a registered business. So that is very easy. That money is literally just to get the administration of the certificate through. To open up a bank account, because people need to transact these days, it is 50 Rand to open up a bank account. You know, even this new credit card, I think it's Icona, or it's like a MasterCard where you tap. That thing is now selling for about 200 Rand. So it's also saying to us, our business must be going with the technology. I was at the small market, and I personally, I make it a point. I don't buy by big shops. I go to small markets, fruit and veg. I buy my vegetables at the Walkers here in Athlone. So it's important that we invest back in our communities. And so I think the point you're making is it's not easy. And even young people, that easier. I mean, I want to refer to Loiso, who's doing the marketing. So marketing is going to be key. Marketing is a key component of selling a business. But we need to invest in marketing. How do we use the social media to open up our markets and to say, here is a market here for young people. So we must be able to create those spaces for our young people. And so CEDA does that. And then the other part is where the grants and the funding comes in. So people just think that government's going to give you money. If you don't have a business plan and if you're not registered, you're not going to be a successful applicant. And I think that's going to be key. People mustn't think that it's just free money, mahala money. There must be a sense that this money must help you make other money.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Like I know we've got two key topics that I actually wanted us, and I think you will explore more on. One of them is the Social Employment Fund, which I really, really want you to at least do, before I even ask questions about it, to at least do a more extensive presentation on. And another one is the recently launched the Youth Challenge Fund. So those are the two that I'd like just to give you, before I even interrupt you with questions, just to do a presentation on those two, because those are two key elements of that. And I know perhaps many other questions would arise from those. But now another thing that I want to ask before we go to those things, because part of the reason we do these talks is to sort of understand as to, have the people we've elected, have they done what they've promised to do? So I want you to just touch on, in a brief summary, in terms of what has been done since you took office. And I like the fact that you are a committee whip, because that's where the real parliament is happening, because in portfolio committees, that's where the actual work of the department gets to be interrogated. So I want to sort of just give us a sense of what has been done since the national elections in 2019 thus far, to build capacities of local economies. And I know probably you'll dwell much even on the COVID-19, but I invite you to at least start from the time of the just post-election. What has been done to build capacities? Because I'm sort of, many businesses, it has been researched that small businesses fail within 3 years of starting. That means, in a way, there's something lacking that could be mitigated against. So in answering these questions, I want you to take into factors those things that I've mentioned as to what has been done to build the capacity of local economy in since the elections. If you could please just give us a brief summary on that.
Okay, so look, again, a very important question, Comrade Zuko. It is very critical. So our policy as the African National Congress is, we want the economy to work for our people. So we have the theory of shared and inclusive growth, but our economy has still not fundamentally changed. Our economy is still very monopolistic, very concentrated, where a few big conglomerates own the entire. And so we need to look at what are the mechanisms that government can bring to bear. So one of the arsenal that the ANC is bringing is to look at creating entrepreneurial class of people. So small business is part of that. To say, look, in the past, Black people, townships were not getting opportunities. So you see, we don't want to be small gogos that selling fed cook all the time. We actually want to get access to the markets and access to opportunities. The major impediment is access to finance. And our banks, just during COVID, let me just use this example. The president, during the hard lockdown of last year, 2020, in June, when it was really tough, the president basically asked the top 5 banks to give 200 billion rands worth of loans to small businesses so that they can at least save their income and give it at a reduced rate. Unfortunately, the banks didn't do that. It was more expensive for them to make the loans and the risk was too big. So it's also they didn't want to be part of that corporate responsibility. And so that idea failed. And so we need to see how government directly can give money in a more accessible way. If the banks are not prepared to do that, maybe we should get a Cape Flats, a mutual bank. And that's why we are asking for in government, that's where's the state bank, because you see our national banks, our banks are just working. So even the younger banks like Capitec and all of the new model banks, they have a more bigger appetite to help small businesses. Now, the budget that they have. Okay, so last year, let me just say, during that COVID, we had a COVID relief fund. So just during COVID, a lot of businesses were struggling and they wanted to pay their wages. And so government made some money available. We had 35,000 applicants in that period, that lockdown period. You know what? The system crashed and we could only help about 1,500. So in the spirit of transparency, we kept the department accountable and said, look, the need is so big and the money is so little, and they didn't put in the necessary IT because everybody applied and the system crashed and there was a cyber attack. So it wasn't very successful, if I must be honest with you. So that was the first thing. Then they're starting to put systems in place. Now they are spending their budgets and they're spending it in a very accountable way. But what we are asking for Parliament is that we want to share the success stories. So if Zuko got a grant for a bakery and he got a 50,000 Rand and he got a machine and that, so Zuko must then be able to tell his story. So there's also something called the impairment rate. So when we give you a loan, the loan is like at maybe 3 below prime, which is really good. And then you have to pay it back. And a lot of South Africans couldn't afford to pay the loans back. So even the loans that we get from CIFA is very good loans. It's cheap, the cheapest interest rate that you can get. And so it's just about paying that forward so that government can get that money again. I think this year it's been a bit better. They didn't meet all their disabled and youth targets. And the reason why they're saying that is the applications are still so cumbersome. People are still struggling to submit the forms. And you know, our bureaucrats, because of, we come from a period where there was state capture, corruption, malfeasance, and all of that. So now people are moving to the extreme. People are extra careful. And there's no room for bureaucratic flexibilities. So people our officials now are very conservative. If you don't meet the criteria, they're not going to make a concession to you, Comrade Zuko. So that's why I always encourage our young people and everybody, do a proper application. Meet the criteria of filling in the forms. So I think that for me is a key thing. So I think we've learned also, what we also want to do is the cooperative banks is also coming back into small business. So there's also that opportunity. How do you get cooperatives working in townships? How do you pool our resources? How do we all buy? So for example, there's probably 20,000 cheese and nyama small scale stores, informal traders there in Kailicha alone. But they all buy by one butcher and they both buy it separately, and that butcher don't give them volumes of scale. And 10 to 1, that butcher is probably a white person. So if we can get cooperative formations where you buy the bulk, like the Somali model. The Somali model is very clear. I maybe have one small shop of 5,000 stock, but because I buy with the whole cooperative, I get the benefits, and therefore my prices can be reduced. So that's the one thing that we're picking up. Let me go to the program on the social employment program. Is it okay? Can I move?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So look, we are worried about employment. So there is the Industrial Development Corporation, IDC. So they've opened a application, and I will give you the links. It's idc.co.za, and it's called Social Employment Fund. So look, what they are asking for non-government, non-state actors to come together and say, look, we want you to we want you to be an implementation agent for 1,000 learner opportunities or employment opportunities. So it's quite a big project to lead. So there's a form, and they define all the stuff that is work for good. It is education, early childhood, safety and security, health, cleaning the streets, ICT, gender-based violence, and so all of those things. I say, if you can help me, just put it up. So those are some of the projects for the Social Entrepreneurial Fund. The Social Entrepreneurial Fund is saying to government, to NGOs, to anyone, put a proposal together. The criteria is that we want, I think we want 1,000 work opportunities. Each of them must work 16 days a month, and each of them must work in a 9-month cycle. So that is a project. I think just go to the Social Employment Fund, Aisha. So that is one project, and I'm hopeful that we can get a few of those type of projects from our townships, because if say, for example, there's an NGO or the Youth Council submits this proposal, Social Employment Fund proposal, then what you do is you get a certain portion of it. Aisha, I want you just to Google Social Employment Fund while we check, so that I can just speak to it. I'm coming back to the Youth Fund now, but the Social Employment Fund is a mass public works program. But instead of government running it, like an EPWP or the City of Cape Town or National Department, because even there's a lot of bureaucracy. We're saying, if there is social capital in a township, let's use the example of Langa. If there's some youth formations there, they then can organize themselves, and they can put in these projects, and they can put the proposals together, so that when they get evaluated by IDC, they can access these funds. The criteria is that 20% of that amount is for admin. So can you see, even that is quite a big budget. So that is on the Social Employment Fund. Can I move to the youth?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So the Youth Challenge. So the Youth Challenge Fund, it's a youth startup support program, and it's intended to stimulate establishment of growth of youth businesses, promoting digital skills to grow the economy and also to create jobs. So the criteria, the eligibility criteria, is in line with the National Youth Fund. This National Youth Fund will provide support to startups, youth startups who meet the criteria. And what are the criteria? You must be aged between 18 and 35. You must be registered with CPIC and be prepared to register with SARS and UIF, 100% South African owned. You must be involved in the day-to-day operations and management of the business. So we don't want people just to get the funds and get someone else to manage it. At least one of the members must be full-time employee of the company, or at least the majority shareholder. They must be able to or willing to work with CEDA and CFIT for business support. And it must be a commercially viable and sustainable business idea. So what are the transactions that won't be considered? Funding towards debt by applicants from another lending institution. So you can't use this fund to pay off other debt. You can't pay off your NSFAS with this funds, for example. Government and state-owned enterprises, officials are excluded. So again, we as officials, myself, I can't get involved, or I cannot benefit, or my family cannot benefit. So none of us are involved in that. If you have a record of corruption and fraud, and if you were unrehabilitated or insolvent, so that is the criteria. So how do you apply? There's an application form, and I think Aisha will send it to you. There is also a hotline dedicated to this, and the hotline is 012-748-9600. I think it's there. Aisha's just putting it up. Once applications is is submitted, then CIFA will make contact to do a due diligence. So you will do a pitch and you will submit these forms. I think it's about a 10-page application form. And then you will have to fill in this. If you need more capacity to build your proposal for non-financial support, there is also a opportunity for you to go to CITA. So that's the closing date is the 20th of December. Let me check if I've missed any of the tasks. So essentially, here is a fund that's managed by your national government, and it's dedicated to young people. So it is broadly anything goes, but it has to have also a digital thing, ICT, new ideas around artificial intelligence or software or app or startup type of thing. So let me pause this.
Okay, thank you so much for that presentation. Now I want to check with the guys that are live with us, Zomzi and Loiso. If you guys have questions with regards to government support of small businesses, with regards to the social employment fund, and with regards to the youth fund challenge, which were presented here, do you guys have any questions on that? You'll indicate by raising your hand if you have any questions, or you can just type in a message. And we do have questions because I'm also following the page as we are live on Facebook. There are people that have posted questions there. So I'll also be reading those questions, but we'll first get the guys that are live with us now, if they have any questions. There any of you, Zomzi and Loiso, that have questions?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ndai. I'm still observing for now, so I don't really have a question yet.
Okay, sure, no problem. Loiso, do you have any questions, Put?
Ask questions.
Okay, Loiso seems to have disconnected. I've read a question that was posted as a comment on our Facebook page, which is something that you partly covered, but in terms of how do we then make sure, or how do we reach a level wherein we say we are defeating the bureaucratic red tape, or we are lifting local businesses to reach that level? Because I think it's more of the bureaucracy being in the middle, and then that side it is government funding and business support, and then on the lower end it is local businesses. Now it's a matter of, do we lower the bar or do we raise the local businesses? So I just want you to maybe try and say, because one of the questions is that the paperwork, and then you wait for 3 years to get funding and all that. So for me, it's more of systematic issues around access to business support. How do we then bridge the gap there?
I think it's a important question, because we really want our young people to benefit. I mean, as a politician, I wouldn't be more happier if our people can get money and can get on with it and can do it. But from conceptualization to implementation, there's always life. Life happens while we're making plans. So I think the first thing for me is that you won't win the lotto if you don't play. So I make this an analogy when I was in Bonteheuwel the other day. I said to people, Tatama chance, Tatama millions, you have to play the lotto to win. Now, in this instance, also, you have to submit an application to be rejected. You see, people are saying to me, it's going to be too much. It's difficult to fill in the form. It's just for this. So people make excuses for themselves now already. No, it's bureaucratic. It's red tape. I won't be able to do it. And yes, you're probably right. But I want to encourage people. You know, Comrade Somzi, if you just submit your application and you put in, you follow the due process, you meet the criteria, then it will be easier for me as a member of parliament to say, here's the reference number of Somzi's application or Aisha's application or Zuko's application without me interfering, because I can't get involved. That will be unethical of me. But I can do a follow-up, what they call a paja, where you ask for information. Why was Somzi's application not followed through? So my appeal to young people, just like you, Comrade Zuko, is doing now, you're creating awareness. But you know, awareness is only the first step. I always make the point about knowledge is nothing if it doesn't follow up with action and behavioral changes. So for example, we all know that the safety belt, you have to wear a safety belt to save your life. It's a fact. It's a fact. Now, people are using safety belts because the behaviors change. So even now also, the forms are becoming easier. The application process are becoming easier. You know, all of us, not one of us can't say they don't have a smartphone. We on all these social media all the time, and we're watching TikToks and all of that. So why can't we take time to actually go through and go to the websites? Because you see, you need to also meet government halfway. So that's my appeal. Yes, I can be hard on government officials to make it easier and they can come out to you and that. But, you know, you can take a horse to the water, but you can't force the horse to drink it, if I can use your analogy from the horse's mouth. So I'm using that analogy also. We want our comrades to take full advantage of it. And what do you need to do? You need to change your mindset. You need to actually fill in that form. You actually need to take 30 minutes of your time and fill in that form, because it's not difficult. So I think that for me is a key takeaway to young people, especially. This government does care. We do want fundamental economic transformation, and there is opportunities. You know, it's better to give a lot of young people a little bit of money to start a business than to make 1 millionaire or a billionaire. So if our program can be, we give you each one a 10,000 or 20,000 to start a spaza shop or start, but you need to start somewhere. You know, the one thing that we were unsuccessful, the spaza shop program is unsubscribed. It's not a lot of people are taking up that program. And I wonder why. Because spaza shop work is hard work. Your profit margins are low. And it's not a sexy work. You have to work long hours, but you know, you're your own boss. So can I also just say that we can't get a quick fix? Our young people must work on hard ethics. They must be able to, if you're going to be your own boss, you can't eat all your profit out. And I think that's the problem. And I'm making a generalization, but you need to pay yourself a wage. You need to live within the means, because our entrepreneurs, you need to use your resources in a very effective way. And so that's my appeal to that. And even from my side, we will keep government accountable. I will phone the DG or the minister and the provincial manager or the official there in Kailicha. If they're not helping you, I will phone them and say, look, but what's your story? So give me the opportunity to help you by also filling in that application.
Okay, thank you for an answer to that question. And I also have a question specifically on the Social Employment Fund. I just want to quickly check, is it possible for an application that will be done. It's part of, ever since I shared that information on my socials, I've been receiving these questions that, is it possible for an NPO to partner with a company? They create a proposals, a matched proposals, and they apply for the social employment fund. And in a way, the thinking around that was that the NPO will deal with ensuring that it pushes young people through the social employment program that will be administratively spearheaded by that company. And the company will bring in its own administrative resources with regards to ensuring that it runs the program in a way that it is able to account for the public money that it will spend on that program. What are the possibilities of such an idea with regards to the social employment fund?
No, I think that is very possible. In fact, we want to encourage that. Comrade Zuka, I don't know if I sent you the terms of reference for this thing, but I will do it again. So it does say that it wants to work as a private partnership program. So the areas that it's identified for work for common good, it's the typical themes is placemaking. So it wants work in townships, health and care, community safety against gender-based violence, greening environment, food security, nutrition, education support, early childhood, youth support, recreation, digital inclusion, community and public art, and other social interventions. So I'm reading now from the terms of reference. It also says that one will be an implementation agent, but private and public partnership, community partnerships is encouraged in this thing. So we're building what they call the social economy. The economy not only for profit, but also for good. You know, when we work, so normally we work for profit, we get a wage. But if I work in and I clean my environment, or I clean in Kailicha, wherever, that's also a value, and that's part of the social economy that we're pulling through. If we get young people to go to ECD centers, and so it must be making a meaningful contribution to the whole community. It must create public good. It must work in the poor and disadvantaged communities, skills transfer, partnerships, local capacity, sustainability. So in short, yes, I'll send you the terms of reference, but I think the criteria is very strict because it says the work is part-time and it will support an average of 16 hours of work per beneficiary per week for a 9-month period. So I did the sums. For any application, if you're going to get a minimum of 1,000 work opportunities over a period of 9 months, this is costing almost 20 million rand for you to administer with 1,000 workers. And in addition to that, only 20%, so you can add another 20%, which is 2 million. That is for project management and admin fees. So it must be labor intensive and it must be able to scale. But I'll send you the terms of reference. I really want to encourage for us to at least get a few proposals in from our areas, especially our townships.
Okay. No, thank you so much. And I'll also encourage a lot of people to apply for that. I'll certainly do that. And another thing that I also wanted to check is there maybe, because I know a lot of people that run fruit and veg stalls, and it also links to food security in that regard, and which is quite a big part of government's work to ensure that there's food security. Are there any programs with regards to supporting such businesses? Because there's quite a lot of them in our townships. And as you say, you buy from the stalls, but is there a way to sort of, and even besides the besides the fruit and veg stores, is there a way to consistently formalize our local businesses and ensure that they are in a very progressive way, so to say?
So we had a meeting with the South African Informal Traders Association called SAITA. In fact, the NEC of SAITA is quite strong here in the Western Cape, and they got
yes, I know they are their general secretary. I know they.
Yes. So she's from Kailicha. Actually, she's also she's heading up the Kailicha Informal Traders. So we have met with them during the COVID period, and they are organized really well. So they have a program for their members now that can access directly from small business. So we are already talking to them about the economies of scale. That example of the cheese and yama is a concrete example, because they make the point that they are competing with each other for the same, and even though in each taxi ranks, if they can just club together their raw materials, then they can make bigger profits and bigger margins. So yes, it is something that we are exploring. Even the SAITA, they are the ones that are saying, give us access to finance so that we can get our members to also get more access to credit. Yeah.
Okay. Now that's one last question that I have is, in terms of government support, is there a thinking around businesses controlling the value chain, the entire value chain of their business processes? Because as you say, if I own a Chisanyama and I should be able to link and buy my meat from someone that owns a small scale, that runs small scale farming, so that we are able to localize the money circulation. That's what I'm trying to sort of reach at. How do we encourage businesses to meet so that there can be a very small circulation of resources amongst themselves? Is there a thinking around that in government?
Again, look, there's a lot of supply chain development programs. I know there's big companies that have a dedicated program, like I know Woolworths and Pick and Pay, and some of these chains do have that. And it links to a local content in the shops. But you know, if we did a study on the food value chain here in the Western Cape, so from implementation, from the seeds that plants the plants to the whole value chain of growing it, of picking it, of logistics, of storage, of transport, of getting it to the retailer, that whole value chain is still predominantly in monopoly hands, and it's still in white hands. And I think they said they did a study that the whole food value chain is still predominant, and that's something that we want to change and transform. And so we on the one hand, we want to get a small business to also get into that space. So let me use a concrete example. You know, ShopRite used to give microflowers from the Cape Flats. They used to give them work as microflowers. Now ShopRite has its own microflowers business. So it elbows out black and colored and Muslim flowers. So the big guys, they only say they will be able to help, but 10 to 1, because they want to control the whole value chain. That's the logic of capital and profit and greed and accumulation. So I think our policy remains still that we must ensure that value chain, the whole value chain, we transform the economy. Because you see, if you're a small business and you don't have access to the raw inputs, then your competitor, say for example, you let's look at chicken. Lion, what's that brand of Chicken Licken, not Chicken Licken, Hungry Lion. So Hungry Lion is in malls. So Hungry Lion is competing with our own Cheese and Yama on the corner, who's also selling maybe chicken and whatever. But Hungry Lion get their supply chains for cheaper. And if we can also ensure that our small business get the supply chain also cheaper, they can also compete. So I think that is something that we strongly push against that. I mean, for that, we've also got what we call a set-aside policy. We're saying that in our whole value chain, certain percentage, 40% of the set-aside must be going for that. Now, where we are with the implementation, we're still a challenge. I don't want to lie. We must be able to push, but sometimes we actually have to break down some of these barriers. And the one thing that we do have is consumer power. And so we can we can actually vote with our feet. So this thing about Black Friday and Black this and Black that, why can't we ensure that we also get Black access to the economy? So we're also asking our people to move away from just being consumers, to be thinking consumers and producers, by where you get a local person, and that person can then pay the school fees of her or his child, and that can also stimulate the economy. So that's something that all South Africans must do. Let's buy local, let's support South African jobs.
Yes, thank you very much for that. One last question. I'm going to try and see if there aren't some questions on Facebook as well. But one question that I have on my end is, what's the view of government and legislatures in terms of the widespread building of malls in our townships and its impact in local economy? Because I'm raising this question because there's that impact of job creation when these malls come, without us looking at the bigger picture of the economic access. Because if I get a job, I'm still a consumer in the economy, whereas if I get a business opportunity, the role I play is rather more, because I can also create employment. So what's government view on the building of malls that has been widespread? I know there's a new one that has been built next to another one in Khayelitsha, just 10 minutes away from where I'm recording this. So what's the view of government on that one?
Look, I think we must stimulate the economy. But I think the last July unrest in both Durban and KZN and parts of eThekwini and Joburg also taught us that we need to ensure that township economies must be revitalized. And we can't just allow the big monopolies to come in and cannibalize our communities. And so there must be protection for small business. I mean, we even arguing that in a mall, a certain percentage of the tenants of the mall must be local entrepreneurs. So, for example, why must we stand outside the mall? Why can't you open your marketing company in the mall, or you open your shop in the mall? So we are advocating for that. That yes, you can get the anchor tenant in the mall, but for the mall to be sustainable and have a better relationship with a community that it feeds into, it must encourage, make it affordable, subsidize. So for example, you look at what the needs are. So if there's a need for I don't know what shoemaking or butcher or this or that, why don't you say very consciously, as a deliberate attempt from malls, you want those local people. I know one or two malls are doing that, but by and large, we must actually encourage, and that's what communities must also do. When any mall comes in, because that money goes out of the, so you see that big phenomenon happen, that your local chemist. Let me take an example, the chemist. Historically, a chemist used to be someone, a pharmacist used to stay in the area. He doesn't make a lot of profit, and he or she then works in that community. They build a relationship. Now these big chains come in and then elbow out our traditional small business. So I think we must be able to protect that. I know Gauteng and KZN has got a specialized township bill. So they're basically saying they're putting a lot of effort, money, and resources, and deliberately saying to the economies that township and local economies must be promoted. We must be comfortable to reclaim our township places. It mustn't be secondary places. So why is it that people can move to the city CBD, but why can't we? So I mean, and it's really good legislation that they're putting in place in both Gauteng and KZN. I can get someone to share that. We already saying that
Okay.
municipalities must make it easier for small businesses. So the president has spoke about business license being made accessible to our communities. Okay, let me pause that.
Okay, very last question now. It comes from the comments on Facebook. After this one, I promise you are closing. We've had you for an hour. Why is CFA and CEDA merging? It comes from the comments on Facebook. If you can quickly answer that one and then we'll close.
Okay, again, a very good question. Look, we don't want government to work in silos anymore. And we want government to avoid duplication and wastage. So, CEDA help you with a business plan. Then once you get a business plan, then you must go to another CFA to get the money. And so now we've already pushed quite hard. It must be a one-stop shop. So therefore the merger is happening. We got a proclamative date from 1st of April next year. So it will be seamless. So once you get assistance for a business plan, that business plan, because sometimes they somebody spend a lot of time in getting the business plan sorted out, but it doesn't speak to the loan application. Then there's a duplication and frustration. So that's essentially what we're doing. And linked to that, there will also be the cooperative development bank that will also be incorporated. So the merger is meant to help with seamless governance.
Okay, thank you so much. I see Zomzi has got a hand up. I'll give it to you, Zomzi, quickly. One question, and then we'll close.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, so it's not really a question, but it's more like a comment or a suggestion, if I'm allowed to.
Yes.
So I was going to say that it will really be nice for
Yes, you can.
Yes, for government to make it a bit or easy for us small businesses to have access in places like malls for a start. Because some businesses like ours, okay, let me say just like mine, it has, yes, it's a small business, it's very young, I just started, but it has a lot of potential, and the clientele of clothing industry grows very fast, especially if you know your job and you know how to do it. I'm so sorry, I'm with my baby. So it has a lot of potential.
Not a problem.
Yes. And also, if it's in the place that is more accessible and more safe for people, it grows so fast. So since now I'm working at my place where I stay at the location. So it's not really safe for everyone to come here, especially those who have big cars and all. It's really safe. But if I'm in the place like mall or any place that is more safer than the location, it will be really nice. So the business will grow like really fast and the clientele will grow really fast. So it will be really, really nice for government to make places like that easier to be accessible.
Okay, thank you so much for that comment, Zomzi. It indeed gave context to the question that I asked about malls and the impact to local economy, and also the response that Comrade Faiz gave. So I think let me thank you for making time to speaking to us, Comrade Faiz. And indeed, it was good to interact with you and get a sense of the thinking within the lawmakers of the country with regards to local economy. And thanks to everyone that viewed on our Facebook page. And I want to also announce that on Thursday, we're having another one, and the topic is quite more relevant because a lot of people are applying for jobs now. It's December. So we're speaking about job preparedness and career development. And we'll explore it to more than just holiday jobs. We'll also speak about people who are underemployed or people who feel as though they need to grow within a specific career. We're bringing an HR professional who's also an author in the business. So we'll be speaking with that and giving you that technocratic knowledge around that. Otherwise, thank you guys for joining us. We'll keep the video on our Facebook wall so that you can view and continue sharing. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Comrade Faiz, for joining us and giving that perspective.
Thank you very much, Comrade Zuko and everybody. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, thanks Zomzi also for joining us, and Loiso had the network problems and he left the page. Thanks Zomzi very much for coming in with your perspective as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, sir.
Thank you, guys.
And I hope Zomzi will talk more so that you can be able to share information with regards to support, and everything else.
Yes, I would love that. I would love a platform like that because I'm really struggling in my business, even though it's operating. But yeah, there are a lot of challenges that I'm facing. But yeah, I believe we'll talk more.